It's no surprise that throughout history, engineers who were also race car drivers have been a part of the Corvette program. Going back as far as Zora Arkus Duntov, these racing engineers have translated what they've learned on the track into ideas that would improve the Corvette on the street. Along the way, their competitive nature in and out of the car has driven Corvette to new levels of performance. One such racing engineer is our second inductee into the 2017 Corvette Hall of Fame, Mr. Jim Minneker. As far back as Jim can remember, he has loved cars. When he was old enough to turn a wrench, he was working on them. And when it was time to go to college, he studied mechanical engineering. While at Michigan State, he found a group of like-minded friends in the student branch of automotive engineers and discovered his skill as a racer.
And we talked like we knew what we were doing. They challenged us to go ahead and campaign a race car, in which we did. We, to their surprise, we went ahead and competed in NHRA drag racing. The way we worked, because we were a group, is everybody had to pitch in and do some of the work. We decided we would rotate the driving chores. That quickly went from a whole bunch of guys that wanted to do it to down to a couple guys. And as we went through the driver rotation, I turned out to be the best at it and won the full-time driving chore for that team.
When it came time to find a job, Jim looked for a car company that wanted to go racing. His search led him to Pontiac, which turned out to be a great home for him. Eventually, though, Jim's reputation led to a job offer that he couldn't refuse.
General Motors started their consolidation plan. Started out with Pontiac joining GM of Canada and Chevrolet to be CPC. That didn't fit me very well. It went from a nice organization that I knew everybody to a big organization that I really struggled in. It wasn't what I wanted. As luck would have it, RUSS G, who was the executive in charge of engine engineering, had started a new arrangement wherein they sent an engine or powertrain manager to each one of the platforms. Russ happened to know that I had Corvettes, that I raced Corvettes, and I was his first choice. So one day I got a tap on the shoulder, how would you like to be the Corvette powertrain manager? I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. You know, here I am going to make my living at something that I did on the weekend. So it was perfect.
And I was extremely impressed with Jim's knowledge of the vehicle, how he had passion for what he did, and he basically knew anything and everything about integration of the powertrain into the vehicle. So I said to myself, there is a guy that I'm sure will be a significant contributor to pulling C4 up by its bootstraps and introducing the best performance vehicle in C5.
I have to appreciate Jim for his contribution to first the ZR1 program and the standard engine program that came alongside it.
Well, one of the biggest things is the Grand Sport, and I'm wearing my shirt as a badge of honor because the Grand Sport was our way of trying to eke out another 50 horsepower without spending a lot of money. Oh, between John HEINRICY and Jim Minneker, especially with their experience in driving and racing the Corvette, they came back and said, if we use the same concepts that the race car teams do, we can bring the engine in at about 50 horsepower more at $200 per engine. And that's an astronomical achievement, low cost, and a proven durability, because if it's good for race car drivers, obviously it would be great for the Grand Sport buyers.
Corvette Chief Engineer Dave McClellan recognized the value of racing as a way of improving the car and proving that the Corvette could beat the best in the world. Having an engineer behind the wheel was part of his strategy to make both of those things happen.
You can see the influence of his racing skills, John HEINRICY's, and some of the other guys that could push the car to its capabilities, to its limits, and make it truly a better car.
Here you've got a test going on out in the real world, but run by a guy on a race team like this, that you were able to take all the information that you would get off of that car and keep improving the car in production. And Dave McClellan, for one, was doing that all the time, using that information and making sure that those fixes got into the car. And here you've got Jim Minneker, who's out there driving. And so anything powertrain-wise, you know, you can guarantee that any issue that might be there with powertrain, Jim was feeding that back to the powertrain organization immediately.
In a dangerous and unauthorized mission that many at GM feared would fail, racing legend Tommy Morrison set out to drive Corvette into the history books. Jim's skill as a driver and engineer would be put to the ultimate test in the middle of a desert track in Fort Stockton, Texas.
We knew that we could surpass the existing record, which was held by the Abe Jenkins Mormon Meteor 3. We went to Chevrolet for sponsorship, and Chevrolet said in the end, we think that the probability of failure is too high, and so we don't really want to get involved with it. But if you must do it, go ahead, and you're doing it on your own.
If there's ever a mission impossible, this was it. I was really skeptical that the thing could happen. I remember writing a memo to Jim Perkins at some point not too long before the event happened. I'm just saying, gee, it would be nice if Chevrolet blessed, I think that's the word I used, bless this caper. We treated it like this thing, you know, the engineers are over there playing around, and there's no way this thing can happen. I mean, no way can they be successful.
So most of the time on the track is circulating at 180 miles an hour, and that's a football field every second, all through the day and night. If there's rain or animals on the track, things can get pretty exciting pretty quickly. So as you're circulating, and the shifts were roughly an hour, you got a lot of time to think about what could go wrong and what's going to happen if it does.
On a hot West Texas desert, something was done that was never done before. The stock engine in this ZR1 Corvette broke a 14-year-old Mercedes record, running 28 straight hours, averaging 173 miles per hour. The big surprise, however, is that the engine in every Chevrolet is designed to these same durability standards.
Well, I did send down a crew with a video crew and somebody on the ground that could call me if we had a disaster. And gee, it never happened. The thing was flawless. It was incredible. So I look back on the thing, and I'm a little bit, you know, distressed, a little bit sorry, a little bit ashamed of myself for not having more faith in Tommy and Jim and John HEINRICY and making that thing come together.
Jim's devotion to Corvette did not stop there. When he learned about an effort to build a museum to preserve and present the history of Corvette, he got on board to help make things happen from the ground up.
Well, most people just do not understand how involved Jim was with the museum in the very beginning, from helping develop blueprints to help tell the story about every aspect of Corvette, from the racers to the people that build it to the enthusiasts. He was involved with every aspect of it, just trying to help tell everybody's story.
One of the things that he pushed right from the very beginning is that it would display something that was part of the Corvette culture, part of the club culture, part of the way people use the Corvette, whether it's in racing or whether it's just as part of their normal driving experience. So things like the mobile gas station with the cars getting filled up, you know, people just relate to that so well. Having the 24-hour world record car there, not just the car sitting there, but you've got these people around the car, kind of like it's a pit stop with a driver's change or something like that going on, and you just look and the story is being told. And Jim was very much behind pushing that kind of a display at the museum, and I think the museum is all the better for it because of that.
Well, the grand opening was very exciting, a huge success, but it was pretty short-lived. After the excitement wore off, then it came down to the nuts and bolts of running the museum, and we kind of always run it like a club, and that just wasn't working. And Jim knew that that was not what needed to happen, and he kind of had the foresight to see that it really needed to be run like a business. And so he was very instrumental in bringing Wendell on board when we needed that kind of mindset, and just took us from pretty much just ready to close our doors to what you see around us today, going from 1,640 members to over 36,000 members. And it was all based on that time period when Jim was part of the board and then the chairman as well. You look back at the people that were very instrumental in those steps along the way, and Jim Minneker is right there at the top. He was right there when we needed him. He had the insight that we needed at the time, the enthusiasm that we needed at the time, and the know-how to get it done. Couldn't have done it if it weren't for you, Jim.
For being the engineer and the racer who helped put Corvette back on track as a world-class sports car, and for his work to give us all the place to enjoy its history, we proudly welcome Jim Minneker into the Corvette Hall of Fame.